Friday, GM announced plans to bring corporate workers back to physical locations at least 3 days per week. After significant backlash from employees, though, today they walk back that plan.
Obviously, with a new way of thinking about things and the new world of work, we have an opportunity to really approach this with beginner mindset and really think about the new ways of working, not just using the old tools of yesteryear.
More employers are mandating that workers return to offices at least 3 days a week. Are these return to office mandates a good thing for business or not?
My name is Stephen Smith. I'm a principal at a company called Reworc, a company that rethinks how work gets done with technology and social science. My main function is running our analytics on how do we measure the future of work. My background is in industrial organizational psychology. Having a left turn into real estate really has made my focus start with how do we measure people at work. And from that, we can then deduce the things that we need to do to optimize that via the tools that we have, which might be, space and policy and those things. It's always starting with the inside out, starting with the people, and then creating the space versus trying to find a space and put people into it. And the physical environment, obviously, is getting to be a more challenging, nuanced question when it comes to how does it affect people in work. Space was just a necessity and something that we assumed was necessary before, and it still is, but it's not the one-to-one cube form that we used to have. So really understanding not only the spaces, the physical spaces that influence work, but the time. Obviously, with a new way of thinking about things and the new world of work, we have an opportunity to really approach this with beginner mindset and really think about the new ways of working, not just using the old tools of yesteryear. We are seeing employers create mandates for employees to go back, only to say from the employees, shove it, I'll go somewhere else. I mean, we have opportunities to do so nowadays. So now we are having this real clash between employee and employer when it comes to mandates, so to speak. And I think that the world has more choice and we're finally using technology the right way. And I think there's a lot of smart companies that are going to take the advantage and zig where others zag. If these organizations are going to force people to be unflexible, and we know flexibility is one of the top drivers of engagement and satisfaction, another company is going to eat their lunch and offer it to take that talent off the board. So I just think the world of globalization and technology and now choice has become at a critical threshold, and I don't think there's any going back. We're really focused on how do we use technology and science to scale the listening conversation that happens in these businesses. What we're doing is really understanding in a much deeper and more fundamental level the work, not just satisfaction with desks and chairs and light and storage, but truly understanding the priorities of the business, understanding the workflows, understanding networks, understanding behaviors and tasks, and being more intentional with the way that information can really influence, ultimately, space design and workplace processes. As the world of work becomes more nuanced, the old approaches aren't necessarily capturing what we need to really optimize work. So at Reworc, we simply make sure that we are using work analytics, business intelligence, and from that, we can make sure that we're building space and policies that are going to not only support the work that's being done, but reinforce a better use of that work in the future. And I think that's a real opportunity that we have. It's been a little bit tough because we haven't done a great job at measuring knowledge worker performance. And trying to tie that to some space design has been really, really hard. And even if you do that, on the back end, how does that influence, the overall performance of the firm? What we've largely done is we've tried to tie things to attraction and retention, although those are very fuzzy lines, very dotted lines. And because of that, honestly, our industry looks like a commodity. We really see the opportunity if we can measure the knowledge worker productivity and if we can actually tie preferences, and not just in terms of like and dislike, but roadblocks to success. And if we can do that, now we can start to show the business how you give me $1 for real estate, I'm going to bring you back 5 in terms of human performance and firm productivity. I think the missing piece is, again, kind of using the right kind of business intelligence rather than just place, survey, and preference. When we look at the real estate industry today, our KPIs and our OKRs have never aligned with business outcomes and overall strategy. It's been more of the business strategy of our function, but those haven't overlapped with the greater output for the organizations, right? It means that our job is to be a support function and to be as efficient as possible. But efficiency is not enough anymore. Now we need effectiveness. So if we can't show that our space is truly influencing the OKRs of the business. I mean, I'm literally talking P&L. I'm literally talking profit. I'm literally talking, whatever our company produces as output. Not all collaborations created equal, yet we're all creating space for more collaboration. And honestly, half the collaboration we do is a waste of time, and you know it and I know it as well. So how do we start to get a little bit deeper? I do believe that we need to expand our horizons. We need to change our language. We need to evolve the ways in which we measure success. And if we can do that, I think that we have a much larger seat at the table, quote unquote, rather than what we might do today, which is, again, here's an order, take it, go do it as efficiently as possible. I think about the metrics of the future and how we can start to maybe tie our real estate efforts towards a larger business outcome. First of all, I want to talk about time on task. If I'm thinking about productivity, literally how much of my workforce is, spending their time doing the things that align with organizational success. Obviously, that's going to change by departments and outcomes and things like that. Oftentimes, an architect will send out a survey, and one of those questions will ask about meeting space. And everybody will say, oh, meeting rooms suck, we don't have enough of it. So naturally, an architect will say, okay, let's go build twice as much meeting room space. Well, what we think we need to do first and foremost is understand, do all of these meetings that we're doing in the organization, do they actually help us get better at our jobs? Are these meetings decision-making meetings that are creating a new product? Are we brainstorming to come up with our next strategy? Or are these meetings something that might be a time suck? All of which is taking my people time on task, completely off what we need to be doing. So rather than just asking a question, do you have enough meeting room space? No, let's go build more. We need to be like Six Sigma. We need to get the 5 whys and then understand, is this actually helping us? And if not, I'm not going to build more meeting room space to keep doing a bad activity. No, I want to reinforce a better use of our time by using space differently. So by being able to start to answer the business intelligence questions, now we can use our tools in terms of space and design to really reinforce a better use of our business. When it comes to how do managers really help this game, what do they need to be successful? What place do they have in this conversation? I think it's twofold. One, we have to understand that they are human just like us. And without the right information, they'll probably make up their own. We need to provide better information that actually has some actionability and has a direct impact on their team and their performance. We want to be driving business results. So to get to that for managers, number one is we have to provide them better information that directly ties to their bottom line. But then number two, I think we need to learn to be iterative. I think we are, still stuck in a very waterfall mentality. And gosh, if anything we've learned in the last couple of years is agility is going to rule moving forward. So how do we create better, listening loops? How do we create iterative design? How do we combine both linear and systems thinking so that we can make sure we are addressing the holistic needs and not just something in a vacuum that's going to have no impact or worse, conflict with the larger goals in the end. And I think we're in a really good position to do that because right now, real estate probably has more eyes on it than it's had in the last 100 years. This is our opportunity to really leverage this attention. It's interesting to me, though, we had such a signed up metric for utilization for so long. but that only was out of a 40-hour work week, right? 50% out of a 40-hour work week. But that's not the weekends. That's not the other 12 hours of the day. If we thought about all of the hours in the day, that 50% utilization was actually like 20%. And now it's like 10% if you use those numbers. So like the framing to me has always been interesting when you frame a conversation and how it influences these numbers. But I think ultimately what we're all trying to get to is how do we create a space or spaces that get more out of our people for the greater good of our businesses. And if we can do that, I don't care if it's Mondays or Fridays. I don't care if it's percentage of time. I don't care if it's big or small or centralized or distributed. If we can do it and we can show that we're bringing $5 back for the $1 you give our budget, we can do it all. As we think about the future, we've always thought of it as the people, the place, and the processes. Those things are what creates performance. So I guess it's the 4 Ps. People, place, and processes create organizational performance or outcomes. And unfortunately, it reminds me of right when I came to real estate, always hearing about this 3-legged stool of HR, corporate real estate, and IT. In reality, that's not at all how it actually turned out in our final business decisions. We had 3 players, so to speak. Maybe they would sit in a room once a month for that kind of overall, check of the box, make sure we're on the same thing. But realistically, our OKRs are different. Our outcomes are different. Our times are different. Our budgets are different. And for all of those reasons, our siloed world becomes even more siloed. And what happens with that is we need to make a holistic decision, but we can't because of the structures in which we find ourselves. But we need to have some central sheet of music, so to speak. And for us, that goes back to the work. What is the work and the mission we are trying to accomplish? Understand how that happens. And now my HR, now my corporate real estate, my IT, with that centralized mission, can now localize this for a more holistic approach versus doing everything in a vacuum. So long story short, for us, people, place, and process, it all starts with measuring work and then letting each of us do what we do best, take that information and act. So first and foremost, to define culture, and there's several different definitions, but the underlying values and beliefs of an organization, the unwritten rules. So first of all, we need to make sure we're measuring actual culture when we have this conversation. And then once we do that, to be able to tie to space is critically important. And it's important for a few different reasons. One is it helps us understand alignment. Maybe my execs say we're here and we're going this direction. This is who we are. But man, do your midline managers see the same thing? Do your boots on ground see the same thing? Understanding and using culture as a tool for alignment and change management between department up and down the leadership chain is critical in terms of actually making sure that we're doing what we're saying we're doing. Now, for how culture influences that space and vice versa, I think any good practitioner who studies culture will tell you that the physical attributes are a huge part of culture. Do you have to have it? No, I think there's going to be a lot of, in the future, when we're all in the metaverse or whatever, that's going to be a challenge. But until then, it's a great opportunity for us to use space and design and colors and words and feelings and smells and all the senses to really redefine who we are. It's actually one of the things that I loved coming from HR to corporate real estate. In HR, I did all the surveys and we'd do pizza parties and training, and we would do we pump out so much communication and all this stuff trying to reinforce our culture. But man, when I went to real estate, I realized I could slap some paint on the wall and put some cool words or a rock wall in the corner, and people overnight feel differently. So the impact and the opportunity we have with the physical space is absolutely huge, which is why I and Reworc, and I think most of us believe that space is absolutely physically 100% a necessity. It's just it needs to look different, right? It can't be what it used to be, because what it used to be was great for then, but we're a knowledge working world now. We are not building widgets. So how do we start to plan accordingly? I just went to Disney World, and man, from the very second you get there, they pump smells and sounds and sights. They do so much that you do not want to leave the dang place. But I would bet that between the cost of just attraction and retention of these employees, they are certainly worth the money to have that same kind of effort that we would put for our clients. And turnover is at least 1.5 times their annual salary to turn someone over. And if that's the case, my God, that's a $70,000 Disney World ticket per year. Then I think it's a no-brainer in terms of creating that experience. Once again, I think it just comes back to measurements. We can't manage what we don't measure. And I don't believe we've done a great job measuring work or our impact on work in real estate. And if we have, and when we do, and as we continue to, yeah, this experience thing, it has to become the future of it. We've shown that we can do it with very diverse populations externally. Now we just got to turn that on ourselves and really capitalize on the opportunity.